Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about using AI in language learning. I feel like I've seen recently that there's been like a trend where people are talking about using AI to learn language, and people are in one of two camps. They're either in the totally go for it, it's the best thing ever since sliced bread, or the other camp of like AI is shit and it's going to ruin your learning. AI can help, but we also have to have skills and strategies that we can use to assess AI's output. We still have to use our own brain when using AI, and I think that's part of the problem. Is some people will just kind of say like, just put it in AI and it'll give you what you need. But like, AI makes mistakes. AI is not human, so we're gonna take a look at that. Let's get going. AI can be helpful in learning if it's used properly. And there is research, especially lately, because pretty much ever since COVID and like the advent of ChatGPT, people for some reason think that's like the invention of AI, but AI has been around for a while. I don't know, the 70s or 80s, I think. Maybe before that is when AI research anyway had been like started. But AI has been found in research to help with language acquisition, help with engagement, help with motivation, and even if like engagement and motivation don't necessarily teach you a language, those are needed to learn a language well. And if you don't have those things, of course, you're going to fall off the language learning journey or the language learning carriage, and you're going to not finish your goals or reach your goals. The other thing is if AI is used well, you can use it to help plan your learning and to kind of help give you feedback. And some research also shows, depending on what the feedback is, like for example, writing, research shows that AI as a judge for writing is equivalent to human judges. That doesn't mean that it's like flawless. And again, it's not human. Like AI is not human, although it appears to be human because it uses human language. But there are certain things AI can't do, at least for now. When we communicate, we use tone, like the sound of our voice, the level of volume of our voice, body language, you know, even things like if you're talking, for example, and you're scared so your voice sounds shaky. Like AI doesn't do those things. Like even though we can give it input and describe things to it, it's not like it interprets things like the way a human does. AI, although can be reliable, is also known to hallucinate. Personally, I found that like if I'm asking AI to help me find sources, because usually it'll offer to be like, do you want me to write you a paper for this? If you ask it to do it, because I've done it before, I've asked it to write it, and a lot of times it'll make up quotes that are not in the paper. Sometimes it's not even like, they're not even making that argument in the paper. And so then if you tell AI this is wrong, it's gonna agree with you. That's the thing, AI often tends to just kind of agree with you and like, you're the wisest person alive. Yes, of course, sir. Of course, madam. So there's this thing called digital literacy. And digital literacy is a skill that is learned and trained. You're not just born with this skill. So the problem is like people who've been exposed to AI, you have different types, right? So someone who's born into the world where AI already exists is going to be different than somebody who was here when AI was like, when it came out. For people like my age or who were around when AI came out, they tend to treat AI like a search engine, which it's not really what it is. The problem is they might ask it a question and then AI will give it an answer and people just think, oh, of course, that's the correct answer because AI said so, without like thinking it through. And I know this because like if you go, like I can even give you an example right now. So if you ask AI, what is the best way to learn a language? Okay, so it says massive comprehensible input, deliberate practice on output, space repetition for vocabulary, identity, and motivation. But okay, so if I say, but research has shown that adults who learn a second language and learn in a classroom tend to outperform those who use comprehensible input alone. You're right. It's like, it doesn't matter what you say, you're right. I mean, yes, like if you're taking a class, especially if you're doing a class and getting comprehensible input, of course you're gonna outperform people who are only doing comprehensible input. But the point I'm making is AI will often just agree with what you say. So you have to be careful with how you ask questions. You need to be careful with the information you're looking for because it'll often tell you you're right. Yeah, so explicit instruction, yes, that's true. Like there is research showing explicit instruction helps in certain ways, just like comprehensible input helps in certain ways. It's not like a band-aid that covers all of it, you know. So you have to use a mix and match of things. That's why people are like, what's the best method? There isn't really a best method. There are methods that are effective for doing certain things in certain contexts, and it depends on your goal. It depends on what you're looking for. If you want to get fluent, like conversational fluency, you probably don't need to spend time in a classroom. You probably don't need to learn a lot of grammar. But if you want to get like academic fluent, then of course you have to. Like my Chinese is not academic fluent. I have some academic knowledge, but like I can't write academic Chinese. Even when I speak in Chinese, I might know some academic things, but it's not the same as my English. And it's because I stopped taking Chinese classes after I came to China and I took a few classes and then I just stopped and I just live here. So like my conversational Chinese, great. My reading is okay. I get frustrated very easily though because I hate the characters are so tiny. I'm getting old. I'm only 36, but I can feel it already. It's like really hard to see. Yeah, so like if I took a class, especially like an academic writing class or an academic reading class, that's going to improve my Chinese in that area. And so that's what I mean. So you have to think about it that way. The point of this video is not about comprehensible input or whether or not you should learn grammar, but I'm just giving you the idea that like AI, while helpful, is going to just feed you information that may or may not be true, or may be true only some of the time, not all of the time. And so it's our job as AI users to consider like what is like accurate about this. How do I know if this is accurate? So a lot of times I will ask AI for its sources. And I personally like to ask AI for peer-reviewed scholarly sources. You don't have to do that, but I personally like doing that because I like to look into the research behind it. And a lot of times if I do that, I'll find other research. Like when you read one, you tend to find others. So that's personally why I do that, but you don't have to. So today I want to talk to you about a thing called SLICC. So SLICC stands for Student-Led Individually Created Course. If I'm not mistaken, I think the idea was created at the University of Waterloo. So normally, if you have a SLICC, you still have an instructor, but they don't function as a teacher, they function as like a facilitator. Sometimes, depending on the course, so like let's say you have a course in like neuroscience, the course might have its own objectives, but then you give students freedom to do projects that are associated with those objectives, but they can create their own as well. So for example, let's say they have to learn about maybe they have to learn about specific diseases that affect the brain, but it's open to what they want to do. So maybe one student, because they have like an internship at a hospital and they deal with Alzheimer's patients, maybe they focus on that. But it's still like geared toward the class's goal, and then they would develop their own goals. So maybe like they might say they have 3 goals, and one goal is to look at the research behind it. One goal is to look at ways to like treat it, and then maybe a third goal is like figuring out ways to help family members cope with it. Okay, that's just an example. But generally you have like the instructor provides like some type of guidance at the beginning, and then students will take that guidance and they'll create their own learning plans. I call them student contracts. I have contracts, but I don't remember if I had AI help me or if I got it from online. I'm not 100% sure. So then students design their learning, they design goals, and then they'll design activities that are aligned with the goals, and then usually they'll get feedback from the instructor, and then they'll use that to like complete activities throughout the week or throughout the term of the project. For example, in my class, my students, they have, our semester is like 17 weeks, but you have like 2 weeks. 1 week is for like final exam, well, the oral test, and then another week is like presentations. So we have about 15 weeks, but we took the first like 3 to 4 weeks going over how to do this, because it's kind of overwhelming for them because they're not used to it. Like Chinese students are used to being spoon-fed. It's one of the like biggest complaints I have about being in China is Chinese students, they are not equipped to try like things on their own. So, I mean, some of them will, of course, but like in class, for example, if I give students a task, let's say I say like, find a video about a topic you enjoy, and it's like, because we want to maybe talk about like American culture. So find a video or a meme or something about something you like about America, and then we're going to like talk about it in class. Students will be like, what do I look for? What am I supposed to do? Like, do you not know anything you like? You know what I mean? Like, I can't tell you that answer. Like, what are you interested in? I have no idea. And I've noticed too, like by doing this now, so we've been doing it for like five or 6 weeks. My students are way more like, they'll just do things. I don't even have to tell them anymore. Like a lot of times, if I just say like, I want this, they'll just go. They don't even ask questions most of the time. Whereas I remember in the beginning, I had students do an activity where I came into the classroom and I just wrote on the board, like, I think I wrote the 10% project or something like that, and then I wrote 45 minutes, and then I think I wrote like goal, complete the project within a lot of time. And I turned around and said, we have a project that we're going to do right now in class. You have 45 minutes. The project is worth 10% of your grade. You can work in groups or you can work alone, and I'm not going to answer any questions. So you get started, and your only goal is to just finish it before the end of the class. And at at first students like laughed, like what the hell? And then I would say probably like 5 minutes went by and no one did anything. They're not doing anything. And so I just said like, you can work together, like there's no size limit for your group. So if you want to have a group of 2 or a group of 10 or even a group of 20, you can do that. It's either way. And then students started asking like, what are we supposed to do? And I would say, you have all the information you need to complete it. And they would laugh, but they eventually started doing things. Some students did like PowerPoint presentations. They created a PowerPoint on like maybe topics they're learning for other classes. One group did a skit from a movie. And the whole point, and I told them, it's like, obviously I'm not going to do 10% of your grade based on that. Like, that's crazy. But I said, the point is you often have the tools you need to answer the questions you have. You don't need to like come to the teacher for everything. And they will come to the teacher for everything. Like in China, students will ask, like, for example, we have to do this online listening course. It's in our syllabus. I talk about it in class. We have a group chat. I write about it in the group chat. I talk about it in English and in Chinese. And they'll still ask me, do we have to do this? Like, I've talked about it probably 20 or 30 times by now. And it's also in the syllabus, So it's like, it's just crazy. And it's not one student, it's many students that will ask that. And even if you don't know, which of course that happens in America, but like my first goal is not ask the teacher. Because then if I might look like an idiot, So it's like, I'm going to ask my classmates first. And I'm going to ask more than one. Like if one doesn't know, I'm going to go to another one. I'm just going to ask one and then go to the teacher. But in China, they often directly to the teacher. Like, I don't know how to do this. And so the whole point behind like a SLICC is kind of teaching students self-directed learning and self-regulated learning. Those things are kind of similar. They have similar cycles, I guess you could say, or similar sequences. But generally speaking, self-directed learning is like the overarching idea of like how you plan your learning. And self-regulated learning is how you like work through it while you're doing it. So like self-directed is probably like bigger picture, I guess you could say, and self-regulated is like shorter or a smaller picture. And like self-regulated learning is like cyclical. There's like 4 cycles. It's like planning and monitoring and reflecting and adapting. But the point of this though is like kind of teaching learners to be learners. You don't need me to learn. I can help you learn, but you don't need me to learn. That's the whole point. And it's the idea is like you're capable, especially nowadays with the internet and like AI and all these tools, like you're capable now as an adult to figure out what you need to learn and and then how to learn it. You don't necessarily need a teacher. So then my goal then is not to instruct like by telling them the answer. My goal is to question and to like help them reflect on, like students will write a paper, for example, for one of their activities, and they might say some information, and I tell them like, how do you know that? How do you know the information? And they're like, I just do. No, where did you learn it from? Well, I read it. Where did you read it? I don't know. Well, I don't know where you read it either. Like, you need to put a source there. And then even if you read it somewhere, how do you know the information is true? How do you know that source is credible? How do you know that they're authoritative? What if it's some random person online who's saying that? Because sometimes they'll also, just like in the States, like we'll look at certain websites that seem legit and you're like, oh, it's actually not that legit. So the point is to challenge them to think about, yeah, how do I know this? How am I able to like connect the dots between these ideas? Or like if 2 people are saying 2 different things, how do I know which is correct? Or how do I know which parts are correct and which are not? And it's like teaching them to be self-thinking, really, especially in this day and age where, of course, everyone in power wants people to just be complacent, little minions. Don't let the government hear me say that. So the whole point of a SLICC basically is just helping students, guiding them along their own learning journey where they plan their learning. There's no like right or wrong way to do this per se. The whole point is just focusing on their goals. And so like in my class, it's an English class, but my students, it's like a general education class, and not all of my students are going to speak English when they leave. I know they won't. They know they won't. And so I tell them, my goal isn't for you to do this in English. If you want to do this in Chinese but learn something else, fine. That's fine. You don't have to do English. If you want to, great. If you want to do another language, you can. If you want to do French or Spanish, you can. With the power of AI, even if I can't speak those languages, I can still get a general understanding of what you're doing in the language. And that's the whole point. It's just helping you learn on your own. Okay, so then the question is like, how do we set up learning for this? I don't know if you know much about like learning, like objective taxonomies or learning taxonomies, I guess you call them. So there's a few of them. There's a lot of them. If you've ever heard of SMART, S-M-A-R-T, that's like really popular recently. It's like specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So it's just a way to write goals that make it kind of explicit to exactly what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're doing it. Another one is like Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is pretty popular. Bloom's taxonomy is based on a hierarchy. And there's debate, as I say with everything, anything in science, especially social science, is debated. It's based on a hierarchy of like cognitive difficulty or higher order thinking. So like the lower things on the pyramid are like lower order thinking, and the higher things are higher order thinking. But there's debate on this, and there have been like changes and updates to it. There's also other models, but I'm just giving you an example. So for my class, I had students use Bloom's taxonomy, and because they don't know how to do that, I have to tell them like how to use AI to do that. You could use like, I think it's called Fink's taxonomy. It's similar to Bloom's, but it's a little more holistic in the fact that it like also has students consider like the human elements to, and like maybe like spiritual elements to learning. So like reflecting on your own learning, what do you think, how do you feel, and then connecting it to like your own experience in the world. Generally speaking, if you go with a taxonomy, they're gonna have research-based evidence for why it's effective or why it's good. That doesn't mean it's perfect, but okay. For today's video, we're gonna use Bloom's taxonomy, and I'm gonna show you how I would go about like planning a lesson. So I've been doing Duolingo. I've been learning Duolingo so on my video here, it says 196 days, but I think now I'm like at a 202 or 3 or something like that. And if you can, as you can see from my video, like most of the time I've been doing it. I have a few freezes that I did, but like I've been doing it pretty much every day. Now, some days have not been long. Like I've done some days where it's like maybe 5 minutes of learning, but then I've done other days where it's probably about an hour. Usually though, I go about 20 to 30 minutes. Usually. That's probably the like average time would be 20 to 30 minutes a day. For example, if I wanted to improve, because now I'm getting close to like an A1, a high A1 in German, and I want to do more with the language rather than just like doing Duolingo. I'm more of like a, maybe you could say like lazy language learner. I don't really like trying to find my own content. So a lot of times like I'd rather like do things in the language with people. I'm more like that. Like I like to interact. I don't really want to just sit there and like watch German videos, or even in Chinese actually. Like I'll watch a Chinese movie if my friends do, but I don't really do it on my own. I'd rather like interact with people, like play a game, talk to people, make jokes. Like I can learn, especially if somebody says something new to me, I can just ask right there, what does that mean? Rather than like, oh, I have to stop the video, look it up, you know, or write it down if it's in a book or something. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of nice. Duolingo also has units, right? And so if I wanted to like, okay, let's say the last unit I did, so I'm in the unit past this, I think I'm in unit 23. And unit 22 is talking about foods that you like. So maybe I could do something to do with foods. So if I wanted to write a prompt, I might say like, I want to create a student-led, individually created course using Duolingo's units for German as my main resource. So I could even go through and look. So let's just say I look at the previous ones that I did. So I will say habits, housing, hotel, family. Okay, so maybe because of the holidays, we can talk about my recent units were on family, living situations, traveling, and food. My current level in German is A1. Maybe like, I would say like mid, is like, yeah, mid A1. So then you say, I would like to have let's say we do like a 6-week project that connects these units together into a larger theme. I want you to use Bloom's taxonomy to create SMART goals. I think having 2 to 3 goals would be enough for the length of this project. I would like to have a deliverable. Well, let me say I'd like to have an activity each week that would also require me to create a deliverable. So a deliverable for me is like I have my students do deliverables. It's just something to show learning. And a lot of times it requires reflection. And this actually, reflection is a main part of SLICC. Like that's the whole point, is you figuring out like, how do I know I'm learning something? So for example, if one of your goals is to read a book and you read the book and you finish, you say, I finished the book, but how do you know you learned, and how do you know what you learned in the book? You could say like, well, I remember some words, but like you can't be specific in it, and that's the point. And the point of this is like thinking like, I want to be able to specifically say what I learned, how I did it. So with this, I wouldn't even focus on language. The goal of this is to focus on something else, but you use the language to learn those things. And this is also why you need to think about your proficiency level too, because you're going to want to find sources that are around your level. Otherwise, you're going to be overwhelmed. And AI can kind of help with that, but you'll also have to do some tweaking. Okay, so I'd like to have an activity that would also require me to create a deliverable. Deliverables will be output production of language that I can use to practice my language skills. Activities should require me to learn things that I can use to create deliverables. For example, if my deliverable is, let's say, a summary of something, then the activity, this activity might include reading about a topic or learning how to summarize information and then summarizing in paper or video, etc. Each activity, we also this. So I do Duolingo every day for about 20 to 30 minutes. I want the activities to take no more than 1 to 2 hours a week, and I want the deliverable to be something I can make and put in the portfolio. So this might seem redundant that I'm telling AI for a total of 6 activities, but you just never know. Even though I told it I want an activity each week, sometimes it'll mess it up, so I'm just telling it. My deliverables could, maybe I'll say examples. Examples of deliverables could be making a short podcast episode about a food item or restaurant. Or perhaps I could try out a recipe for German cuisine and create a recipe page using Canva to make an infographic for the required ingredients and the process the process of making the food. Okay, I think that's what it goes. So let's see what it says. Okay, so the theme of 60s project, my life in Germany, food, family, home, and travel. You will imagine yourself living in a German-speaking country and produce artifacts that show how you describe, compare, and present aspects. Okay, that sounds okay. Like, so far the theme sounds fine. So these, like apply, analyze, create, those are from Bloom, which is why it's doing this. So, and then the way it's written, this is a smart goal. For example, goal 1, by the end of week 6, I will apply basic A1 German grammar and vocabulary to describe my family, living situation, eating habits, and travel plans by producing at least 6 multimodal deliverables, okay? Each using at least 10 newly learned words from Duolingo. That will probably also require me, see like, I'd probably change this a little bit, but like if I did that, that would require me to like write down words I learn or like figure out, you know, because like I might know a word and I'm obviously if I know it now, it's from Duolingo, but like later on when I'm doing new things, I might not know. You know what I'm saying? I might not know if I learned it from Duolingo or from elsewhere. So like you might have to tweak that, but the general idea is fine. Goal 2 is analyze. So by week 6, I will analyze differences between my real life and a hypothetical life in a German-speaking country by creating at least 3 deliverables that include comparisons. Okay, and then using comparison sentences per deliverable. I can't even do that yet in German, so we'll see how that goes. By the end of this project, I'll create a final multimedia presentation combining my weekly deliverables to narrate my imagined everyday life in Germany, demonstrating appropriate A1 sentence structures and vocabulary with no more than 3 grammar errors per section. I'm not going to focus on the errors. 6-week activity plan plus deliverables. Okay, let's see. So week 1, family, activity 1 to 2 hours, learn vocabulary sentence starters for introducing family members. Right, watch a short beginner German video about family introductions. Okay. Practice writing short sentences using haben, sein, age, and simple adjectives. I'm sorry, this took me a second because I was like, why is it saying haben and sein and then it just said age? Like it went from German to English. A family introduction and infographics. So yeah, so see, like that, okay, like doing something like this, even though it might sound stupid, but the thing is like giving yourself something to do. Like this already sounds kind of fun to me. Taking pictures of my family and like making almost like a family portrait using, like you could even do this in a PowerPoint. You don't have to use Canva if you don't want to. You can just put it in a PowerPoint slide and just like rearrange the slide to look this way, you know? And then if I wanted to, like if I make it, I could either write it or I could record it. Like I could make a video of the thing and just record my voice over it and have it be a short, brief thing. Or I could, if I don't really have German friends, but if I did, I could even practice with them and ask them to give me feedback or, you know, what do they think? And I could say like, can I introduce my family and introduce yours? You know, like that's not that hard to do. And again, you don't have to do that. If you wanted to, you could also write it down and give it to AI and ask for feedback. Like I said, AI's feedback, especially if you talk about like grammar stuff, AI's feedback's pretty good. If you give it a rubric, so let's say you're asking AI, like my level's low, but let's say my level's high and I want to ask AI to give me feedback on like an academic paper I wrote, you really should provide a rubric for it to do that. Because then it's going to have guidelines and it's going to know how to do it. If you don't provide it that kind of thing, it's going to kind of just haphazardly do it based on what it thinks and it's not going to be good. Like imagine if I had students, like if they write a creative writing, like a short story, and I tell it to grade it, it's not going to know how to grade it. But if I say like, here are the 9 parts to a creative writing, which there are 9 parts, and I say like, here's the rubric, can you grade their papers based on this rubric? Normally it'll follow the rubric and it'll do a decent job. Like you definitely always want to double check AI's work, but it'll do a decent job. Week 2, living situations / home. Explore vocabulary for rooms, furniture, and locations using Es gibt, mein Zimmer, in meinem House. Okay. Yeah, I think that's fine. Read a sample A1 text describing an apartment or room. That's the thing too, like if you can't find this, you can ask AI to provide text for that, right? Like this kind of thing, if I can't find text for it, I could say, could you produce a text of however many words in A1 describing an apartment room? A photo-based room tour, a 1-minute narrative video audio tour, or Canva page describing your living space. That's kind of cool too. And I have all those things. I have a phone, I have a camera. I could just go through like, here's my office, here's my desk, here's my chair, here's my computer. Like those are all things that people do, you know? Like it might seem silly because we're like, no one says those things, but we do talk about it. Like when I moved into my house, guess the first thing I did when I called my mom, here's my kitchen, look, here's our refrigerator, there's our washer. That like I did those things in English. I did those in Chinese. I called my Chinese friends and did the same thing. Week 3, food and shopping. Learn how to talk about food, dishes, preferences, prices. Watch a short German video about grocery shopping, German cuisine. Collect vocabulary for ingredients and cooking verbs. Yeah. And then deliverable, a German recipe page for a simple German dish. If you wanted to, you could try the dish. You could make the dish. If you don't like making things, like you don't want to make a recipe page, then you don't have to make a recipe page. You could make the recipe and just take pictures of your process and put that into your e-portfolio. And you could even have like a 2-sentence reflection. And the thing is when you do reflection, you don't necessarily have to write in the target language. You can if you want to. But if you wanted to do like, especially because my language level is low, if you wanted to do deeper reflection, you could use your mother tongue to write about how you think you learned. Now, if your language skills are higher, go for it. Like if I did it in Chinese, I'd probably write in Chinese because my skills are higher. But I'm not going to do that in German. Uh-oh, network connection lost, attempting to reconnect. VPN issues. Okay, we had some technical difficulties, so I had to do it again. And as you can see, it changed some of the things. But generally speaking, it's the same. So apply and analyze and create. They just put apply and analyze together and then create by itself. Yeah, I think it's okay. We'll move on from here. So yeah, family thing, living situation, food and daily habits. Okay, then travel. Explore a German city via a tourism website. Yeah, identify transportation options and basic travel phrases. Yeah, this is kind of fun. So like you could plan, well here, like a mini travel guide. You could even plan a trip. Like if I wanted to go to Germany, where am I going to go? And you can learn the things about like, how do I take the train? How do I get a taxi? How much does that cost? That would be very useful, especially if you went there. This is like, you have a mini travel guide, but if you didn't want to do that, your itinerary could be your deliverable that you turn into yourself for your portfolio. Week 5, social life and invitations. Study sentence patterns for invitations, suggestions, and opinions. Compare cultural norms around meeting friends, eating out. Short podcast. Record yourself inviting a friend to eat somewhere and talk about what you want to order. I don't really like that one. I would rather do something like, I think the idea is okay, but I'd rather do something like, I'd rather do more German than English, to be honest. Again, if I'm reading something complicated, I'd want to do English, but like this isn't super complicated. So I think I'd rather do something like maybe read about cultural norms for like eating at a restaurant. You know, because like in America, for example, you have a waiter and or waitress and they're super nice and like, but they're different in different countries. And so maybe like, how do I call the waiter? Do I have to wait? Is there a specific thing I do? You know, how do I ask for the check? Those things. For the deliverable, I think it would be better, it'd probably be more interesting to do like a comparison of culture, especially if that's what you're learning about. If you're learning about food, then obviously like talking about what you want to order, but if you're learning about like cultural differences and cultural norms, I think it'd be better to do something like that. So you could do like a Venn diagram, you could do a podcast, you could do a PowerPoint, you could even do a thing like a brief guide, like a mini guide to foreigners for what to expect when they go to Germany. A brief guide for Americans who travel to Germany and what to expect when you're eating. And then week 6 is the synthesis final project. So select the best artifacts from weeks 1 to 5, connect them into a cohesive narrative about your new life in Germany. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I think these are fine, but I would say, can we alter activity 5 by focusing more on cultural norms around eating at a restaurant, or by focusing on the food? I want to do this entirely in German, so I want the activity to be appropriate for my level. And then you don't ever want to waste a prompt, because especially when you use ChatGPT for free, like people will do this and like, no, you need a full prompt, because I want to change 5 and 6, so now I'm going to shift enter and say, I would also like to change activity 6. I think the portfolio should be worked on each week. So by the end of week 6, I will have a fully prepared portfolio. But I still want to learn new things for week 6 about Germany or living in Germany. This could include holidays and discussing food or family during the holidays. Okay, so yeah, week 5, eating out in Germany. You'll explore simple German restaurant phrases and cultural expectations, such as ask for a table, haben Sie einen Tisch für zwei, ich möchte zahlen bitte, yeah, no free water, need to ask for a still. What? Water's not free? Is that true? I don't know. I have to look this up. I don't know. Tipping norms. That's important because not all cultures tip the same. And like China doesn't have tips and Americans like, that's terrible. Well, Their wage is low, but it's still a livable wage. That's why they don't have tips. And the American tipping culture is terrible because it's just an excuse for business owners to not pay their workers a livable wage. Okay, so you can use, Duolingo. They have a lot of like this ich möchte and like haben Sie einen Tisch für whatever. Like we talk about that. But like, I don't know anything about tipping norms or about the free water thing. Restaurant role play script auto recording. Create a short dialogue between you, the guest, and a waiter in a German restaurant. That could kind of be fun, especially if you played both roles and you did a little video. Maybe I should do this. I feel like you guys would enjoy it if I did that. I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments, but I think it'd be kind of funny to have me as a German waiter and then me as a guest. I would have to memorize lines. My German is not, I can't spontaneously say things like this in German, but I think it could be kind of fun. 10 to 12 sentences total, include typical A1 phrases for ordering, asking questions in pain, record yourself reading the script, blah, 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 add the script to your portfolio page for week 5. Yeah. If your portfolio is an e-portfolio, you could also put it like the video in there. Like for example, if you did an e-portfolio, you could use PowerPoint to do it, and like each page would be like a deliverable. And like I said, you really do want to reflect. So like at the end of each of these, you should reflect in some way, and I'll probably add this here in a second. Week 6, holidays, family traditions, and food. Connecting culture, family, and food in a holiday context. You choose one German-speaking holiday where food and family are important. Such as, like Christmas is coming up. That'd be kind of interesting to do, you know? New Year's Eve, those kind of things. 4 to 6 key holiday vocabulary. Okay. What foods are typical? One traditional activity families do together. So the goal is not to explain deeply. It's to name, describe, and relate. That's the point. Like it's with my level. Now, of course, if your level's higher, like say you're B1, B2, then your goal should be like explain things, you know, or connect things with your own culture, those kind of stuff. If you're even higher, you might even talk about the history behind it. If you're like a C1, you might talk about like the history of the holiday. Where does it come from? Why do they have it? How did it change? You know, who started it? There's like a number of things. So for this, it's create a Canva page that includes 6 to 10 simple German sentences about the holiday. One typical food, a short description, one tradition, picture, icons, support, understanding. Yeah, I might make 2 pages. So when I make infographics, I don't like clutter on an infographic. So if it's like a lot of things, I might split it up into 2 pages. But yeah, you get the idea. I think this is a great plan. The only thing is I think that we need to incorporate reflection. So I'm going to add this into it. It's great. I don't want you to change anything except for adding a component at the end of each activity for reflection. The reflection should be geared toward addressing how, or maybe like what I learned, how I know I learned it, and why it matters to me in my future career or goals. The reflection will be done in English to ensure deep thinking about my learning, especially because my German level is low. Okay, so the 150 to 250 words. And again, this is totally up to you how you want to do it. I think that's fine for me. I'm used to writing. A lot of times when I write, it's a lot longer than that anyway. So then I have 3 guiding questions that I'll use at the end of each week. What did I learn this week? So specific things like vocabulary, cultural information, or skills. How do I know I learned it? So I provide evidence. When I say evidence, I don't just mean like, here's the thing and now I can do this. I mean that's part of it. But let's say like, for example, I learn how to order food in German. I might say like, I know I learned this because I was able to create this thing, and while I was creating it, I remembered the vocabulary, and you know, so it's like things like that. And the thing is there's no right or wrong answer to it. It's just kind of you telling yourself like, how do I know that I'm actually like improving my skills? And then why does this matter to me? So connect the week's learning to language learning goals, intercultural competency, travel plans, academic professional aspirations, and personal identity development. Again, this is extremely personal and individualized to you. For me, like, I don't like doing things just to do them. I always think of like something else I can connect to do. So like, let's say I'm learning how to, I don't know, compose music. I might think about like, how can I use the knowledge I'm learning in this space to apply it to my teaching, or to apply it to my like language learning, or like maybe I make music now. Can I make music in German? Can I make music in Chinese? Like I'm always thinking about how I can connect what I'm doing in one area to something else. And the reason why is because it gives it more of a purpose. You don't have to necessarily do that, but then it just makes it easier for you to like find other reasons to be doing it. So I personally don't like having AI create like a Word document, because it always ends up messing it up anyway. So normally what I'll do is I'll just like open up a Word document, and I will just like copy and paste and then adjust it based on like what I like. So let's see. Now, even though I asked AI for 1 to 2 hours, there's a really good chance some of these will take a while. Like if it takes you a long time to find something, you know, for example, like German apartment listings, that might be way above my level. I don't know. Yeah, like it just says photos only if language feels too advanced. It's probably going to be too advanced. That could take like 3 hours. you know? So it's okay if you have to make adjustments, or if you go a little longer over something, you know, or even if it's a little under, like maybe the family one will be easy, so it only takes me 45 minutes instead of an hour. Like, that's okay. The whole point of this is just to get you focused and be goal-oriented in your learning. I say this because, like, I have a lot of friends learning languages. I mean, I'm a language teacher, and a lot of times, like, when my students first make goals, for example, they're very broad and, like, really unspecific. Like, they'll say, like, improve my English as one of their goals. And, like, what does that mean? Improve what? Is that like, I learned a word, so now I improve my English? You know, or like, I can say a sentence I couldn't say before, like I improved. Like, you need to be specific, improve what and how. And then what's the goal in improving it? Why do you need to do that? Just like sometimes students will say, like, get better at using English. What does get better at using English mean? Like, be specific, get better at doing what thing in English? Like, writing in English? Writing what in English? Are you writing CVs? Are you writing letters? Are you writing academic papers? Like, you want to be as specific as you possibly can when you're designing it. The reason I think this is beneficial is because, to be honest with you, a lot of language teachers, a lot of the ones I know, and a lot of the ones I've seen in research, there's a lot of research on issues with language teachers, they often lack, like, really basic pedagogical knowledge of, like, how to teach. Same thing as, like, you'll have teachers who teach a language, but they're not trained in teaching language, they're trained in teaching. It's different, okay? It's different. It's a little interdisciplinary because you're combining, like, it'd be like if you are a mathematician, you have no idea how to teach, but you're a mathematician, so you're going to teach math. It's this idea of, like, you're combining two disciplines together, but you only know one of them. That's the issue. For example, in my major, my degree, it's specifically targeting education for language. Like, it's combining these two things together. Whereas somebody who's like, I have a master's in education, or I have my doctorate in curriculum and instruction, like, that's great, but you probably don't know certain things that are going to affect a language learner. Same thing's true, like, somebody who maybe they specialize in, like, literature or a language, like maybe they got their doctorate in Spanish, but they don't necessarily know how to teach. And that this is part of the problem actually in higher ed, is a lot of teachers will have degrees and they do have doctorates and they are experts in some way, but they often will, like, hop over a little bit. I mean, it's still in the same field, sure, but it's not quite the same. Like, we have a lot of teachers at my school who have doctorates in literature, and then when they grade students' essays, they grade them based on literature, like, elements. And, like, this isn't a literature class, this is a fucking English class. Like, you need to be grading them based on the message they're giving. You know, like, a lot of times they'll focus on, like, grammar and vocabulary, and, like, yes, that matters, but a lot of times when students do something wrong, it's like a simple mistake. Just like when we might say the word, instead of for, we say fro. You know, like, obviously I don't mean fro. Teachers aren't going to be like, you need to correct that. They're going to be like, oh, it's probably a mistake. That happens sometimes, but teachers are so geared toward this, like, correct grammar that they totally miss out on the fact that the students are writing completely illogical arguments. And then they'll be like, you're writing so good because your grammar is good, or your vocabulary is advanced, like, whatever that means. Because a lot of times it's not advanced vocabulary, just like vocabulary others, I don't know. Anyway, my point is like, using AI this way can be really beneficial. Even if you have a tutor, like my friend, he uses italki. This is not a sponsored video. I've never used italki, but I'm just saying, like, my friend uses italki, and he's had tutors that he's enjoyed, but whenever he tells me about the experience, it always sounds like the tutor doesn't really have a plan. They're just going in and doing something. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna benefit from that, but you're not going to benefit as much as somebody who's specifically targeting your needs. So, like, your maybe problem areas or your goals, and they're helping you find, like, material, and that's like what they're for. Like, as a teacher, I'm a facilitator. My goal is to help students find things they can't find. I'm gonna show them how to get there. I'm gonna use my tools and my strategies and share those with my students so that they can use those things, and then they no longer need me. Because, like, once they leave my class, guess what? They're not gonna have me around. That's the whole point. Like, they're gonna have themselves, and that's it. Unless they pay a lot of money and then have a teacher, you know. Maybe I'll do this. I don't know. I'll think about it. I'm really busy right now. I have finishing my research project. I have a conference that I'm preparing for in April, but then I was asked to do another conference in Chinese for, like, how AI is used in the States in education, which means I have to read because I don't quite know. I have some general idea, but I'm not an expert in that because I focus solely on China. Like, my entire research of everything has been China for the last however many years, 3 years or something, 2.5 years, I don't know. It's just all I've been focused on. Actually, if you include my master's, it's been more like 4 years. I am slowly, very slowly, but still working on the book. I'm so sorry. For those of you in my Discord channel, I'm very sorry. I'm still alive. I'm not dead. I haven't forgotten about you. I've just been very slow, and I'm a little afraid to give you, I think I finished one chapter and I'm working on a second one right now, but, like, I'm afraid to give you that chapter and then just vanish. So I just want to finish, like, one more chapter and then kind of, like, slowly start putting it out. I guess look forward to that. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting. Maybe I could show you this. Also, I don't know if you're interested. I do have students doing this, and I could I've thought about doing like interviews with students and putting them on the channel. Let me know what you think, I guess. I don't know. Or your thoughts on this in general. If you're gonna use AI to learn, you gotta use it properly. And I know people will say like, just like have a conversation with AI. And like, you can, but you gotta be careful. Even with my Duolingo, so I paid for Duolingo Max, and I like it because it does give me, I have opportunities to speak even though I am talking to a computer. There are times though the computer makes mistakes. It corrected me and I thought maybe I said the wrong thing or I had the wrong pronunciation, but then I found out like it heard what I said. It heard what I said, and then it said I should say the thing that I said. Okay, that's clearly a mistake, right? So AI is not perfect. I mean, humans aren't either. I feel like with humans it's easier to, because you can talk back and forth and you can kind of negotiate or discuss things, whereas like with an AI, you can, but AI just, I feel like AI is too like people-pleasing kind of, you know? Like it doesn't stand its ground, I feel like. So thanks for watching this video. I know it went a little long, but I hope that you benefit from it. If you want, so I'll share the link to the Waterloo website, the University of Waterloo, and then also the like sources that I use for the video. And then maybe I might share like a prompt guide or something. I don't know. That requires more work. Yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.